In this video, we continue our investigation of malware and cyber attacks by turning to the topic of viruses. Thus far, we've talked rather broadly about malware. Now we're going to address specific types of malware. Our first examination will be a virus. A virus could be a piece of software that infects programs or any type of executable content. What does a virus do? It modifies the infected program to include a copy of the virus. It replicates and goes on to infect other content. Furthermore, it's easily spread through a network environment. Thus, the simplest definition of computer virus would be a program that self-replicates. Spreading is not the only characteristic of a virus. A virus usually has some other unpleasant function. However, self-replication and rapid spread tend to characterize a virus. The spread or growth of a virus can be a problem for an infected network. A rapidly spreading virus can reduce the functionality and responsiveness of a network. A network is designed to carry a certain volume of traffic. By exceeding this traffic load, the network may become temporarily non-functional. When attached to an executable program, a virus can do anything that that program is permitted to do. It executes secretly when that host program is run. The virus is effectively some executable code, and this code could be machine code that affects some existing application, utility, or system program, or even the code used to boot a computer system. More recently, the virus software has been some form of scripting code, typically used to support active content within data files, such as Microsoft Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, or Adobe PDF documents. Note that a virus cannot run itself. It requires being attached to a host program that, when run, will make the virus active. Some viruses are specific to operating system and hardware. They take advantage of the details and weaknesses of those systems. Computer virus infections have formed the majority of malware seen in early personal computer era. And the term computer virus often is used to refer to malware in general, rather than specifically what we've specified as being a computer virus here. I'd like to introduce you to another resource that can be useful in getting a grasp on cybersecurity and malware. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, provides cybersecurity and infrastructure security knowledge and practices. The Virus Basics page, shown here, contains two general sections, a set of frequently asked questions and another set of links entitled For More Information. Let's take a quick look. I click on What is a virus, and we get a definition of virus. If we examine this definition, it agrees with what we've presented in our discussion. So this is a nice little resource to kind of get acquainted with some terminology in a broader sense. Let's go back to the home page and take a look at the section entitled For More Information. Understanding antivirus software. Let's explore that. We get some useful information here on what antivirus software does, how it works, and so on. So I just wanted to make this available to you as a resource for getting a little bit more understanding of cybersecurity, malware, and so on. We can consider a computer virus as having three parts. The first of these is the infection mechanism. This is the means by which a virus spreads or propagates, enabling it to replicate. This mechanism is sometimes referred to as an infection vector. The second component is a trigger. This refers to the event or condition that determines when the payload is activated or delivered. This might also be called a logic bomb. And the third component is the payload itself. This is what the virus does besides spreading. The payload may involve damage or may involve benign but noticeable activity. Over the lifetime of a virus, it undergoes 4 phases. The dormant phase, the propagation phase, triggering phase, and the execution phase. First, the dormant phase. The virus is essentially idle. Then it will eventually be activated by some event. This could be a date. The activation of the virus, again, is achieved through a trigger or a logic bomb. Note that not all viruses have this stage or phase. Next is the propagation phase. A virus places a copy of itself into other programs or into certain system areas on the disk. The copy may not be identical to the propagating version. A virus may change itself in some way to avoid being detected. During the propagation phase, each infected program will now contain a clone of the virus, which will itself enter a propagation phase. Next is the triggering phase. The virus is activated to perform its function, and triggering can be caused by a variety of system events, including a count of the number of times this virus copy made copies of itself. During the execution phase, the function of the virus is performed. It may be harmless, such as a message appearing on the screen, or it could have some kind of malicious, damaging effect on the system, such as destroying programs or data files. Most viruses that infect executable programs carry out their work in a manner that is specific to a particular operating system, and in some cases specific to a particular hardware platform. They're designed to take advantage of the details and weaknesses of the system that they're targeting. Macroviruses target specific document types, which are often supported on a variety of systems. And we'll discuss macroviruses next. NIST defines a macrovirus as a virus that attaches itself to documents and uses the macro programming capabilities of the document's application to execute and propagate. Most of the information introduced into computer systems is in the form of documents rather than programs. These macro viruses then are spread as the documents they exploit are shared in normal use. A very common method is by electronic mail, particularly since these documents can sometimes be opened automatically without prompting the user. So macroviruses infect scripting code or macros used to support the active content in a variety of user documents. This can include things like Microsoft Office or Microsoft Outlook. Microsoft Office uses these little pockets of code called macros. A macro can consist of a set of instructions to take repeatedly executed steps or operations and write code such that with a single operation or a single invocation of the macro, all of these steps are followed. Microsoft Office and Microsoft Outlook support something called VBA, kind of a subset of Visual Basic. This is a scripting language. Many document processing programs support similar capabilities. Macroviruses take advantage of the support for active content using scripting or macro language embedded within the word processing document or some other type of file. In the mid-1990s, macro and scripting code viruses became the most prevalent type of virus. Many macroviruses infect active content in commonly used applications. The reason these viruses are so threatening is, first, they're platform independent. In addition to Microsoft documents, it's also possible for a script in an Adobe PDF document to become infected. Think about where Adobe PDF documents are read. It's not just on a Windows-based system, but this is a portable type of protocol for formatting documents. So PDF documents can be read on many different types of systems. So any hardware platform or operating system that supports such applications could be infected. And these viruses do not target the platform or executable code, they infect the documents. And we tend to share these documents, sending email messages to folks with attachments, such as a word processing document or an Acrobat PDF. So these viruses then are easily spread. They're also easier to write and to modify than traditional executable viruses. There's no simple or universally agreed upon classification scheme for viruses. We can classify viruses along two orthogonal axes: the type of target the virus tries to infect and the method the virus uses to conceal itself from detection by users and antivirus software. First, we note boot sector. This infects a boot record and spreads when a system is booted from the disk containing the virus. A file infector. This infects files that the operating system or shell considers to be executable. Macrovirus infects files with macro or scripting code that's interpreted by an application. And finally, multipartite virus infects files in more than one way. As an alternative to classification by target, we can talk about classification by concealment. Encrypted viruses are such that a portion of the virus creates a random encryption key and encrypts the remainder of the virus. So this uses encryption to obscure its content. How does it do that? The key is stored within the virus. When an infected program is invoked, the virus uses the stored random key to decrypt the virus. When the virus replicates, a different random key is selected. Because the bulk of the virus is encrypted and uses a different key for each instance, there is no constant bit pattern to observe. Therefore, a replica may not look much like the original from which it was cloned. A stealth virus is a form of virus explicitly designed to hide itself from detection by antivirus software. The entire virus, not just a payload, is hidden. It may use code mutation, compression, or rootkit techniques to achieve this stealthiness. A polymorphic virus is a virus that mutates with every infection. It creates copies during replication that are functionally equivalent, but have distinctly different bit patterns in order to defeat programs that scan for viruses. The signature of the virus then will vary with each copy. To achieve this variation, the virus might randomly insert superfluous instructions or interchange the order of independent instructions. A more effective approach is to use encryption. The strategy of the encryption virus is followed. The portion of the virus responsible for generating keys and performing encryption and decryption is referred to as the mutation engine. This engine itself is altered with each use. Metamorphic virus. A virus that mutates and rewrites itself completely at each iteration and may change behavior as well as appearance. So a metamorphic virus rewrites itself completely at each iteration using multiple transformation techniques, making it more difficult to detect. In this video, we explain the concept of a computer virus. We discussed the components of a virus. We explained how a virus operates, and we also described two approaches to classifying viruses. A computer virus has similarities to a biological virus. A biological virus is a tiny piece of genetic code that can take over the machinery of a living cell and trick it into making thousands of replicas of the original virus. A computer virus is a fragment of parasitic code that attaches itself to executable code. The behavior then is somewhat similar to the biological virus. Now, a computer virus examines the file system of a computer for executable programs that have not been infected. Because remember that a virus, although it contains executable code, it can't execute on its own. So upon finding an executable program, the virus hides a copy of itself in that program. When that program is called into execution, the virus takes over, replicates itself further in the same manner, and may perform damage to the host. Now, this damage may not be immediate. It may be deferred for some time after the infection. Friday the 13th is an actual favorite. Because the virus can defer its attack for a long time after infection, it can propagate widely before anyone detects it. There was a virus called Jerusalem, also known as Friday the 13th. This was created in Israel in 1988 to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the creation of the Jewish state. To activate the virus, the calendar only had to hit Friday the 13th, and all the programs and files that were being used would be infected and eliminated. We also want to mention that viruses can be easily spread. For example, a disk, such as a thumb drive or flash drive, can become infected by inserting it into a computer in which the virus has already infected the operating system. An infected disk can infect the next computer into which it is then inserted. So let's consider some rules for avoiding viruses. If you conduct an historical examination of viruses, you would likely notice a common theme to virus attacks. Namely, they want you to open some type of attachment. The most common way for a virus to spread is as an email attachment. Considering this, we suggest that you use a virus scanner or antivirus software, such as McAfee or Norton, two commonly and widely accepted virus scanners. If you receive an attachment in an email and you're not certain about it, just don't open it. Don't believe security alerts that might be sent to you. Vendors such as Microsoft don't send these out openly. Check the vendor's website regularly, as well as one of the antivirus websites. While these rules will not make your system 100% virus-proof, they will go a long way toward protecting your system. In our next video, we'll continue examining malware and cyber attacks, and we'll turn our attention toward worms.